and I know you're covering it, when there was the Council of Vice President Lenny Robredo manifested that they have no continuing objection to the canvassing of the votes. And I think you will agree with me that that is a good start towards the unification process.
The economic team of President-elect Bongbong Marcos is starting to take shape as the camp nominates BSP Governor Ben Diokno to head the finance department.
I'm committed to ensure continuity of sound macro and fiscal policies that have helped position the Philippines among the most resilient emerging economies in the world.
Meanwhile, Monetary Board member Felipe Medalla will complete Diokno's unexpired term at the BSP, which is until July next year. Other additions to the cabinet of Marcos Jr. include former University of the Philippines President Fred Pascual as Trade and Industry Secretary, SMC Tollways President and CEO Manny Bonoan as Public Works Chief, and former Davao del Norte Representative Anton Lagdameo as the Special Assistant to the President, the post previously held by Senator Bongo.
The economic team of the new administration is almost complete, with the president-elect saying the team is made up of the best people. But will these new cabinet members be able to improve the country's economic conditions? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. We will be joined by our guests and the other chiefs when we return. Welcome to this Thursday edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us, Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Luchi Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5. Ladies, happy Thursday.
Evening.
Happy Thursday.
Ba't happy nga talaga si Luchi?
Hindi, nilalagyan ko lang ng kaangkop na feeling ang
Okay.
aking greeting. Bakit pa?
Okay. Will it have to do with the economic team finally announced today? Or not necessarily?
Well, masaya yung economic team pero yung proposal ng DOF medyo masaklap.
Yeah, you're looking at
Yung income tax hike.
several new
Ouch.
taxes, increased road users tax, motorcycle tax, pickup tax,
Gaming,
EVAT,
diba? Online,
carbon
digital,
tax,
diba?
even single plastic users tax.
Hindi, pero I mean, medyo nakakakaba. Tapos i-defer daw yung train. Diba?
Yung train,
I-defer
yeah.
yung mga tax deductions.
For another
under
3
the
years.
train na dapat next year na, diba?
Yeah, supposed to start in
medyo,
January.
Wow. Yeah.
Pero in general, mukhang masaya naman yung mga negosyante dun sa mga
Yes.
new
Yes.
appointments, no? And,
Tama. Yung
Ayan.
ayan na.
Di
Ayan
naman
na, yan
pagkikita
yung
si Sir.
guest, di
Okay,
na.
let's bring in our guest after
Segue
Ami's
na.
segue. Let's bring in our first guest for tonight. Now joining us is George Barcelona, the president of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Gandang
Good
gabi po,
evening.
sir.
Yes,
good
sir.
evening and thank you for inviting me.
Yes, sir. Certainly, sir. We're seeing a lot of old familiar faces in the economic team being brought in by Bongbong Marcos. Some of them have even served as many as 3 presidents in the past in varying capacities. Ben Diokno, I remember from being Undersecretary of Budget under Cory Aquino before moving on to ERAP and then so on down the line with Duterte. But sir, with all these new faces, with all these new and old faces in mind, anong tingin ng PCCI? Are you comforted by the announcement of the new economic team?
Yes, we are. I think all of the appointees are people that, yes, we're familiar, but with good track record. They have shown themselves to be competent, and the number of years they have devoted to government service has not come up with anything that would question their character. Of course, there's a few. The new face that we see is the incoming secretary of DTI, Fred Pascual. But to the people in education, he's no strange person. Also being chancellor of UP for many years, and he in his stint, president. In his stint, he brought a lot of improvement in expanding UP campus, not only here in Diliman but also in the provincial campus. So he has a broad view of inclusivity, and I think it bodes well for him being the Secretary of Trade and Industry.
So what are you hoping for from this new economic team, the business community?
Well, as of now, continuity and stability. Okay? They're facing a lot of headwind.
Yes.
Alam natin na itong inflation, itong supply chain issue, at saka yung mga pangunang bilhin, problema, tumataas ang presyo because of the, how it is, no? With the geopolitical in Russia, war in Russia and Ukraine, fuel has come up, other commodities has shoot up also. So it's going to be a challenge for them to maintain a balance of control inflation at the same time to keep the economy going. And to
Yes, but-
really, at this point in time, we need more jobs. No? Earlier, of course, Luchi was mentioning some of the pronouncement of DOF.
Oo nga.
Okay. No, but before we get there, I'm just wondering, during the campaign and prior to the elections, the sentiment was not as bright. As a matter of fact, there were so many news reports saying that there was some fear about what a Marcos administration would bring to the fore, no? And then on the first day of the counting, I mean, the day after the election results came out, the stock market dropped. So may mga fears no na, nako, does this bode badly for business? Are you saying that all that has, well, diminished, if not totally quashed?
Lucy, at that time, next you mentioned about the stock market dropping, but it was a reflection of what was happening outside also. The index of other countries dropped. But again, people politicize it, no? That it was because of his election. Uh, yes, all of us are holding, our breath, no? Who is going to be appointed to this key economic cabinet position? And as we see right now, I mean, with Governor Ben Yongno holding the helm of DOF, no? And then Mr. Philip Medalla from Monetary Board to be the central bank governor. And of course, an old hand is there, Balisican. I mean, he used to be also with NEDA before,
NEDA.
in Philippine Competitive Commission. So as I mentioned earlier, the new face is going to be Fred Pascual. But in the private sector, he's well known. He was with ADB for many years. And he's, of course, now he's the incumbent president of MAP, Management Association of the Philippines. We touch base together with key issues affecting our economy. And he's a good friend. And I think he will do well as trade and industry. Thinking of moving ahead, I said guarded optimism because we need to have a sustainable economy. Okay? In view of what's happening, last week or even this week, the labor sector has been clamoring for wage increase. And I think this has been addressed by the Employers Confederation, and also PCCI also chime in that it has to be a constrained increase because this may have a snowballing effect on the inflation. Okay?
How much of your sentiment toward the new administrator, your optimism, is based on the fact that there's continuity, which is something that many businessmen are looking for every time there's a shift from one government to another. Do you think that based on the appointments so far, that this will be, how much of it will be a lot like the policies of the previous, of this present administration under President Duterte?
I'm sure they realize the continuity is very important, no? But the situation is very fluid, mind you. No? These are beyond our control. But I liken it to 6 years ago. When President Duterte came into office, he was an unknown. Okay? And then, of course, people, from the way he communicates, people were sowing doubts of how well he can run. But it's important, like what BBM team is doing, to appoint people who are, known for their competency. And I think BBM has done that. No, there are other agencies that are just as important that has not. We haven't heard who will be appointed, like the Department of Agriculture. We know very well that what's happening, prices going up. Fertilizer has gone up 3 times, urea. So it's going to be a challenging. It's going to be a challenge to the Department of Agriculture. And now that we have, in a way, mitigated COVID-19, the travel and leisure business is bouncing back. And it's a low-hanging fruits, and we're waiting to see who can take this to another level, our tourism. So sa ngayon, wala pa yung designated Secretary of Tourism. And the other agencies that we are anxiously awaiting is the Secretary of Energy.
Yes.
Because that's a key factor for us, in many fora, when it's discussed to attract foreign direct investments or investments even for the local, top of mind sometimes ang pinag-usapan yung kuryente. No? its availability, and its affordability. So these are three agencies that we're still hopeful that people appointed would assure us that they know what should be done. Often, pag bagong administration, we talk about the 100 days, di ba?
Yes.
And for me naman, I said, it's not really a fair yardstick, no, na 100 days. So short, 3 months lang yun eh. I would stretch it further. Kung 300 days, medyo na, because when you have new people being assigned to a certain position, they're just getting to know, the people they're going to deal with. And for us, the private sector, we're also getting to know them. That's why I said there's a bit of comfort with the economic team right now. The people we'll see, the people we see now are people that we know.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Barcelona, you mentioned agriculture. And the Secretary of Agriculture now, si Mr. William Dar, is warning about a looming food crisis. Pero parang may disagreement dyan eh. Sabi ng iba, hindi naman daw totoo yun eh. They're just justifying more importation. What's your take on this? You being from the business sector.
Well, the importations, 2 years ago, yung kinapos tayo ng bigas, or 3 years ago, that really kicked up our inflation by 1.5%. No? And after thorough study, they found it a solution with the rice tariffication. And it has worked. The people in the farmers tilling rice, they get a subsidy from that. I would take this with a view that it's a global situation. This thing about food scarcity. There's even in the United States, yung gatas nila nakaproblema. Okay, for infant, and it's a combination of different factors. Supply chain is one.
Yes.
Shortages due to
The war.
the war.
I mean, the Ukraine. Yeah.
The Ukraine is one of the big exporters
Yes,
of
absolutely.
wheat.
Yeah.
Okay, and some of the so all of this will bear down. And for Secretary Dar to mention that, I think he's looking ahead and sensing that if others are feeling it already in Europe, sooner or later that will filter down to us.
Yes, sir. But, sir, I do understand, I suppose we do understand that the business community takes comfort in continuity of policy. But don't you also have a paradox here na at the same time, the public, I suppose, elected the Bongbong Marcos for change because the last 36 years now did not produce the filtering down effect of whatever improvement in the economy there has been in the last 3.5 decades. So I suppose that's the question po eh. How do you find that balance now? The continuity of having old names, old faces, still in government, back in government, versus the expectations of the public that something remarkable is going to happen compared to the last 36 years?
If you talk about the achievement of the Duterte administration, I think in the 6 years, they did provide the stability on the macro social foundation natin. It went down during the strict protocol of the quarantine. But if you notice, the quarter after those strict quarantine, it will jump up because the quarantine is less. So there's vibrancy in our economy. And mind you, the remittances of our OFW is still very strong. And earlier I heard about, we might be lacking healthcare personnel because of the demand outside. Okay. Aside from that, even the BPOs, I've been getting report that there's quite a demand. There's increase. They are projecting at least a 10% increase. So the remittances and the BPOs and our export sector should do fairly well. Export, of course, they're constrained because of the logistic issue. Cargo space is not only lacking but very expensive. There is this bottleneck in port in LA, where there's 3,000 ships, okay, that are having difficulty unloading. And one of the report I got from a shipper was that it takes about 40 days to unload container. So all of this is not because we're not doing well, but these are external factors, no, that affects us.
But what some economists are saying, that our economy is so consumer-led, and we have long been trying to shift to more, productivity, especially in the agricultural sector,
Yes.
as you've just said. No, but how do we move this from consumerism to more productivity? I mean, right now, kasi we're just so dependent on retail, service sector, pero yung productivity side natin, it makes us less competitive, especially in the world market. And now that we're expected to deal with food crisis, if it's coming on our own, where do we turn? That's the major worry, actually, of many economists.
Lucy, in the last quarter report, actually, the manufacturing sector increased by double digits. Okay? So that's a good sign. But yes, I do agree that we have to expand our industrial base. Kaya itong mga bagong batas natin, especially, of course, the SIPP was just signed. No? And these are all good to attract foreign investments and to create more jobs. And I think we're cognizant of the fact that malaki ang utang natin. Okay? And their advice from DOH that let's not load ourselves with more load. But really, we need to provide an environment wherein we can attract investments, not only foreign but local. Kaya itong ease of doing business, we are pushing for ARTA to be maintained, and the Director General, who has done a good job to maintain in his post. We need that to make really the attractive to foreign investors that we're ready for business. And then we're flexible, we're open. And of course, there are other factors I mentioned. Power is one. Okay? And, but the infrastructure per se, in the past 5.5 years, no? Almost 6 years, there's a lot of new roads that were made, railroads were made, and those will bode well. No? That will trickle down effect to the rural areas. So
What about
go ahead.
Yeah, what about labor? For example, we have a very, well, right now we have a militant labor right now. No, I mean, they've been asking for hikes, and there have been hikes, but I think it suffice to say that the hikes are, well, they're never satisfactory to
That's
begin
right.
with, but
That's right.
but they're really small. But the impression is that it's a very employer-favored environment more than labor. What can you say
Yeah.
about that?
Talking about the topic of labor. Okay, I feel the difficulty of the labor sector having an unemployment rate as now 6.8 and underemployment of about 14%. Okay, now mind you, we live in a global community now, and there's competition also in trade. But of course, it's sad to say, and we are very, as I said, cognizant of the fact, every year we produce 700,000 to 800,000 youth in the labor force. But the industry just cannot absorb. The absorptive power of the industry is not enough. And this is where, as I said earlier, we got to promote ourselves to be attractive to investors wherein they can create jobs. But in the same light, this is something that PCCI has been advocating, is the upskilling. Madalas ang pinag-usapan, skills mismatch. Honestly, there is, because there's hardly any matching going on. So we need to match what are the skills, the new skills. I would like what I mentioned earlier, the SIPP, that the priority plan must be tied in also to the skill side. If we want to attract investment, it's not just that we're giving them incentives. We have to tell them that we have the skills for them. And this is where TESDA or Dole should put effort in upskilling our workers. I don't in my discussion with possible foreign investors, I tell them, I said, we need training, we need upskilling. We don't want you to be coming in because of our cheap labor. Our labor rate compared to the other ASEAN countries is not exactly very cheap, okay? But what we can offer is intelligent, English-speaking workers. Filipinos are hired all over the world, and they're accepted. And we do want them to come in and to use Philippine as a hub, to provide, their products for the likes of East Asia and also ASEAN. We are in a democratic sweet spot where the population average age is still 25. And I think that's a plus for us. And to think that now with this things still going on with the US and China issues, hopefully we will get more investments. As what we've been hearing with the pronouncement of US commerce people, they're saying that they're really looking into the Philippines for investments. So it's only the investment really for us, no? Jobs where there's more economic activity, and it definitely the OFW increased. There's no doubt about it, but we can take it from both sides. Okay, whether it be health workers, it be contractor, it be marine people, okay lang, because we have every year we have about 700,000 to 800,000 added to the workforce.
Okay. Okay, maraming salamat, PCCI President.
Let me,
Yes, sir.
One thing that I'd like to share is that, of course, we know who is going to be the Secretary of Education, di ba? Si
Yes.
Vice President, presumptive Vice President Sara. And I would like for them to really work on opening up our education. For the last 2 years, I mean, the youth has lost a good 2 years. Now, how can you study online when there are hardly in their areas the Wi-Fi is underserved and it's expensive? So they have to be one of the priority, I think, of this administration is to make sure safeguards are put and mobility is improved for our youth to go back to schools. Otherwise, again, we will be dislocating. I mean, youth that has lost years of studies, and also years of proper nurturing.
Okay, PCCI President George Barcelona. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Ingat
Thank
po.
you.
Salamat, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Please stay with us. So, Cheese, we'll be right back. back to the Chief Turn 1 News. And now joining us is Manuel Bonoan, the incoming Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways. Secretary Bonoan, thank you for joining us. He's also currently the President and CEO of SMC Tollways. Sir, magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi po. Magandang gabi po sa
Mr.
ating
Bonoan.
tagapakinig.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us. Sir, of course, we do want to hear your plans for the DPWH. Pero po, let me start off with this po. Of course, you are inheriting the Build program of the outgoing administration. But at the same time, government is also inheriting 13 trillion pesos in debts. So I'm wondering po how you intend to strike that balance between continuing a massive infrastructure program amid all the debt.
Well, to start with, I really thank the President for choosing me to join his cabinet and to be at the helm of the Department of Public Works and Highways, which I came from initially before, no?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, anyway, it's, as you said, medyo, it's going to be a very challenging job that we're going to do in the department in the midst of all the financial crisis that natin ngayon dito. So we have not really discussed all the details with the incoming president, but he has given me some directions on how to proceed. And we will continue with the build programs that had been started. And we have to complete what has been started at the earliest possible time so that magamit na yung mga infrastructure program. At the same time, we need to look at the list of other projects that are being considered and reprioritize them at the same time to
Yes, sir.
to look at yung mga high-impact projects that can contribute immediately to propel the much-needed economic recovery of the country. Yeah, so we have to be very selective, actually. At the same time, we need to provide support to agricultural production, particularly in yung mga
Farm to market.
farm to market, roads and irrigation and water impounding projects, and plus pati sa tourism daw, I think we have to support. And these things actually are a very general muna, but we have to put all this into yung working list para makapag-simula kami ng husto.
Pero Mr. Bonoan, ang problema nga, nabanggit na nga ni Ed, yung funding, no? Dahil ang dami nating utang. Wala ba kayong balak na medyo mag-shift toward more public-private sector partnership?
Yes, ma'am. I think, yes, the President has also emphasized that we need to yung natin sa public-private partnership so that the private sector can still come in. Or most particularly in addressing po yung dito sa road sector kasi there are many things that could be given to the private sector in addressing yung traffic congestion problems, particularly in urban areas and the growth centers, and plus yung mga mobility problems that would interregional connections at saka yung just to not to impede the flow of traffic po.
Saka may balak ba kayo? Kasi nag-umpisa na ngayon yung Mandanas ruling, ano? Malaki na wala na budget sa national government. May balak ba kayo na mas bigyan ng responsibilidad yung mga local governments in constructing certain infrastructure projects? Gusto niyo ba silang bigyan ng bigger role?
Yes po, I think, well, at this time, what I know is actually meron na po yung Mandanas law that has increased their allocation from the IRA.
Yes.
And so they would have some funds actually to cater for local infrastructure on their own, no? And as far as we're concerned, we will be focusing on our core functions, particularly on the national roads, major flood control, and yung mga support to agricultural production areas and yung sa tourism po and other, mga income-generating programs of the government.
What about health facilities po? Because as you know, di ba, yan po ang naging crying need, sabi nga, no? And everybody realized that most of the hospitals are really located in urban centers, particularly in the NCR. Is this part of the purview of Dpwh? Is that even in the plans when you're talking about infra or not? Is that in the DILG level? Because if it is, hindi ho ba maiiwan na naman and there will be no change in terms of spreading the benefits of better health care facilities in remote areas or in the regions?
Well, the function of the Department of Public Works and Highways po is basically in the engineering and construction of the hospitals. So basically, yun pong mga prioritization of where the hospitals would be built and everything would be with the Department of Health. But we will be coordinating with them because there were times when actually the Department of Public Works and Highways would be called upon actually to do the construction of the hospital.
Pero hindi yan kasama sa mga infra
Hindi po.
projects, no? Well, one of the criticisms is the building of far more highways than mass rapid transit systems, no? And the company that you're connected with, in particular, has a project that will run from east to west in NCR, no? Via the Pasig, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the criticisms nga, not just of that project, but many other highways that are being built is, yun na nga po, sir, no? Parang we're building for cars instead of for commuting passengers. Ano pong take niyo dyan?
Well, I think, in urban areas po, I think there would have, we have to put more emphasis on the mass transport facilities. Actually, because, and siguro, I don't know, it's just a idea at the moment. We have to develop connections to other growth areas so that hindi ho concentrated all in Metro Manila. Kasi it will still continue to become a problem on traffic congestion if hindi ma-disperse yung growth centers. Actually, so we are providing we will be looking strategically yung mga connections in other growth centers through roads or other means of transport siguro. We will be collaborating with also the Department of Transportation and other infrastructure agencies para we will be able to collaborate and pull our resources all together. Ang panahon namin dito is yung importante po siguro na sinasabi ni Presidente, since we are in the midst of yung mga fiscal deficits natin and problems, I think we have to be very selective. Yung high impact that had immediate contribution to propel the economy.
Like what, sir? Can you, what do you have in mind?
Well, we'll address yung traffic congestions, because I think if you think about it, actually, we were spending a lot of time, money, and effort. It's very costly, actually, to transport goods and services when you don't have an efficient land transport system or transport system. So, as far as Department of Public Works and Highways, we'll have to look into yung mga congested areas, particularly along the main trunk lines, mga road trunk lines natin that are inter-regional in nature, yung connecting regions from, let's say, Cagayan to Bicol to Mindanao and things like this. They have started actually all these kinds of projects, but there are still many congested areas along the trunk lines that have to be addressed.
May isa pang problema, Mr. Bonoan, dyan sa Dpwh, which is corruption, no? At si President Duterte, lagi niyang binabanggit yung department Meron na ba kayong iniisip how to deal with this problem?
Well, yes, I still have to immerse myself into the department. But basically, po, I think what probably my initial thinking now is we will continue to consolidate all the efforts of all the people in the department so that magiging united po kami lahat, no? And as far as corruption is concerned, I think sa akin lang naman po, I think it's going to be well, it's just to be the leadership example, siguro ang gagawin natin dito for the time being. And we'll try to continue to professionalize the department, yung mga tao natin, including po yung mga contractors themselves. No?
Just on the lighter side, sir, matanong lang namin, paano ba inalok sa inyo ang position? We're just curious. How do those offers come?
Well, I was just surprised actually that I was given a call actually, and they said if I would be interested, and I said I'm still with the San Miguel group.
Yes.
Actually pending to the tollways actually for quite some time now.
Nako, isa pa yun, sir. Paano na tataas mga toll fees? Tuloy ba yun?
I'm sure that San Miguel Corporation has a lot of people actually that can take over my position holder. Wala naman siguro problema.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But was it an easy thing to accept, or did you have to think long and hard?
Yes, it took me some time actually to get to make a decision also. Kasi, well, but on the other hand, I think si President Dpwh naman, we come from the same province naman, and he knew me naman nung nasa Department of Public Works and Highways pa ako eh.
I see.
Okay. Incoming Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Salamat, sir.
Thank you very much po, and nice sa atin lahat.
Ingat po. And now we shift to politics, in particular the party list system. Joining us is Congressman Carlos Isagani Zarate of the Bayan Muna Party List. Sir, magandang gabi and thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Magandang gabi, good evening, Ed, Ami, and Lucia, at sa ating mga nanonood ngayon. Maying
Yes, sir.
gabi, magandang gabi.
Magandang gabi, sir. Sir, well, in particular, Bayan Muna had been topping the charts ng party list race since 2001. In fact, in 2019, you had 3 seats in Congress. Now, suddenly, 2022, you're not getting any at all. Ano po nangyari?
Well, tama yan, Ed, no? At kami man ay nasurpresa sa naging resulta ng eleksyon. But ito, resulta ng maraming factors, no? But both internal and external. Unahin ko na yung external factors. Hindi naman lingid sa inyo at sa ating mga kababayan na wala sigurong ibang party list na talagang tinuduhan ng kampanya, black propaganda, vilification, red tagging, kundi ang Bayan Muna at ang mga kasamahan namin, no, sa Makabayan Black. Hindi even nung before 2019, but after 2019, nung makakuha kami ng 1.1 million votes at nakapagpaupo ng 3 kinatawan, talagang hindi na kami tinigilan, no? And weeks leading to the election, ang nanguna na talagang nangangampanya laban sa amin ay ang presidente mismo, no? So nagmumula sa presidente, iniasahan natin na talagang lahat ng ahensya, lalo na yung security sector, ay kabahagi rito, no, sa kampanya laban sa amin. So isa yon. Then itong black propaganda na ito, yung disinformation, fake news, ay tuloy-tuloy. Even during the eve of the election, if you can recall, may nilabas na isang fake COMELEC resolution na sinasabi doon disqualified na kami, no? Talagang nagkaroon din ng epekto ito doon sa aming mga constituencies, no, dahil maraming naniwala na talagang disqualified na ang Bayan na. And syempre, no, andyan yung massive vote buying, andyan yung pagpasok ng maraming mga party list groups, not even our traditional bailiwicks ay affected na rin dahil yung mga dynasty ay nagtayo na ng kanilang mga party list at iba pang mga malalaking economic and political interest groups. Internally, tinamaan din kami ng pagkalusaw ng aming maraming mga chapters this past 2 years during the pandemic, na wala ring hinto ang atake. Maraming biktima ng fake surrenders, maraming mga leaders namin sinampahan ng gawa-gawang kaso, and at worst, may mga leaders kami napaslang during these past years. So ito ay combination ng maraming factors hindi naman ito magiging hadlang sa amin sa pagtutuloy-tuloy pa rin ng aming mga advocacies dahil despite all this negative campaign vilification against us, tatlo pa rin kinatawan ng Makabayan Bloc ang papasok sa 19th Congress, ang Kabataan Party List, Gabriela Women's Party at ang ACT Teachers Party Listed.
Pero sa tingin niyo yung mga advocacies meron pang mass support? Kasi syempre yung mga botante iniisip din, hindi naman basta-basta sabihin ni Presidente kung mga pagmusibong grupon to, mga komunista yan eh. Syempre iniisip din ng mga yon na, ano ngayon kung ano. I mean, do you think you can still promote those advocacies ninyo? Kasi kahit si Calyodi medyo hindi maganda yung performance niya, no? Ano yung naiisip niyo sa sentimento ng karamihan sa Pilipino with regard to your advocacies?
Yes, tama ka dyan, Miss Ami. Talagang kailangan lang siguro, magiging aggressive tayo. Dahil lihitin mo naman yung mga advocacies ng tinutulak ng Bayan Muna at ng Makabayan Bloc. Halimbawa, pagpatataas ng sahod ng ating mga manggagawa, pagbigay ng tamang suporta sa ating mga health workers, especially during this time of pandemic, pagbibigay ng ayuda, wakasan yung kontraktualisasyon at labanan yung mga regressive taxes na ini-impose. So, I think these advocacies are still very much valid. Talaga lang nitong nakaraang 2 o 3 taon, hindi natin masisisi at ang marami nating mga kababayan kung nabiktima sila this past years of disinformation at sinamantala rin ng maraming mga sektor, lalo-lalo na mga may perang mga politiko na sa panahon ng eleksyon ay ginamit yung kanilang resources para karoon ng massive vote buying. Kahapon sa session namin, may nakakausap akong mga kasamahan sa Kongreso. Maski sila ay na-surprise. Sabi nila, itong party list noon, 5 pesos, 20 pesos ay okay na. Pero ngayon, talagang umaabot raw yung bilihan ng boto sa 1,000 up to 5,000. So, dahil nga sa hirap ng ating mga mamamayan, ay pinapatos ang mga ganitong maling mga gawain sa pagpili ng ating mga halal na opisyal ng bayan. But despite that, nakikita pa rin namin ang napakalaking papel, lalong-lalo na yung mga tunay na party list na nagtutulak ng mga makabuluhang advokasya sa ating Kongreso at maging sa labas ng Kongreso. Kaya hindi rin kami sang-ayon doon sa panukala na alisin na ang party list system, despite the fact that it is now being hijacked by the same sectors, nung sektor na dahilan kung bakit in-insert ito, ipinasok sa ating 1987 Constitution.
Okay, having said that, na tingin mo hindi dapat tanggalin nga ang party list, pero ito na nga, natalo kayo. Ang tanong ko, under a Marcos administration, how do you reassess your group and what you have been doing, and paano pa kayo sa tingin mo magiging relevant, for lack of a better word, sa position nyo ngayon na wala na kayong party list group na pinangangatawanan? Anong gagawin nyo?
At this point, Ms. Lucci, tama ka, nasa period kami of assessment. Kailangan talagang mayroong adjustment doon sa aming mga pagkilos. But even despite wala kami sa Kongreso, nabanggit ko na kanina, andyan pa naman din naman yung aming 3 kinatawan ng kasamahan namin sa Makabayan Bloc. If you can recall, the Progressive Bloc started with 3 seats in 2001. So hindi rin malaking kawalan yon kung sa 2022 ay may 3 seats. Although naabot namin yung panahon na nagkaroon kami ng 7 kinatawan sa loob ng Kongreso. But having said that, I think mas magiging relevant tayo ngayon dahil sa kinakaharap nating administrasyon ng Marcos Duterte na hindi kaila na ang kanilang hangarin talaga ay baguhin ang ating kasaysayan. No? At napakalaki ng papel namin maging sa labas ng Kongreso para labanan itong tangkang pagtutulak ng mga revisionista at even denialist narratives na sinasabi nila, no, para walisin o burahin, no, ng mga naging naipanalo ng mga mamamayan, lalong-lalo na sa paglaban sa diktadurang Marcos noon. No? And ito ang magiging tingin naming malaking papel din namin, no, sa patuloy na pagpupukaw, pag-organisa at pagmobilisa sa ating mamamayan. Nitong nakaraang eleksyon, bagamat sinabi nilang natalo ang bayan muna at maging ang kilusan na iluwal nitong eleksyon na ito, yung pink movement. No? But you have to remember, millions also ang namulat. At ito ang pwedeng magiging tungtungan natin, no? Sa sama-samang paglaban dito sa hinaharap nating mga challenges ngayon under a Marcos Duterte administration.
So nagre-regroup ang opposition, ha? Kasi yun ang sinasabi ng mga tao eh. Baka mamaya nagmamove lang kayo dyan eh. Wala na naman mangyayari. After 3 years, talo ulit. So nagre-regroup nagre-reorganize.
Dapat, at yun dapat ang gagawin na Miss Ami. Ano? Day 1 pa lamang, after, dapat magsisimula na kaagad ngayon at magiging hamon yan. Na magkaroon talaga, at matagal na namin sinasabi ito, kailangan talaga magkaroon ng broad, united alliance of all democratic forces. No? Even during the conduct of the election, before the election, no, nanawagan tayo noon kung pwede sana magsama-sama yung mga lumalaban doon sa tambalang Marcos Duterte. But of course, no, it's now water under the bridge. Pero merong oportunidad, no? Sa susunod na 3 at 6 na taon, kailangang palakasin muli ng broad opposition yung kanilang hanay. At sabi ko nga, nagluwal ito ng mga milyon-milyong namulat din, lalong-lalo na sa hanay ng kabataan. No? Isang senyalis nito, kaya namin pinagpupugayan ang Kabataan Party List for the first time. Nung lumahok ang Kabataan Party List, ngayon lang ito nakakuha ng napakaraming boto, more than 500,000 votes. No? And ito ay dahil na rin sa mga napakaraming kabataan, no, na marami dito first-time voters at nakita nila na kailangan lumahok sila sa kilusang ito ng pagbabago ng ating lipunan, Ms. Ang.
Okay, maraming salamat. Bayan muna, Congressman Carlos Zarte. Thank you for your time, sir. Ingat parate.
Salamat, sir. Ami and Luching. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Magandang gabi po. And that'll be all for this edition of The Cheese. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Mami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
And I'm Luchi Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.